Yes, good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be speaking Manchester United today, and we had some breaking news. A David Ornstein bomber coming out with regards to the latest and greatest. Eric Ten Hag divides a lot of opinions, and we've brought a big Man United fan on the channel today, Alice. How's things?
Things are good. I'm just so relieved that we have clarity on the manager situation. Like now we've got an answer. We can get on with the transfers. We can get on with like everything we need to do now.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like for Man United in the last, I want to say 3 weeks. What's it been? 3 weeks since that FA Cup win, and it's almost like you've been linked to, I want to say 10, 12, 15 managers, Tuchel, Thomas Frank, and now you've kind of got like clarity. Um you've got a new beginning, I guess you could say. And this was the report from Ornstein. Not only is he staying, Ornstein, as it says in here, holds negotiation over a contract extension. I think he's got 1 year left on his current deal. Is that right, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, 1 year left.
Do you think he'll sign a contract extension, or do you think that this could potentially spill into next season and then see how he gets on under the new ownership?
I think he kind of has to sign a contract extension now, just because like Ineos had talks with other managers. They were deep in talks with Tuchel. They had contact with McKenna, Poch, Thomas Frank. I think the fact that there was so much news coming out that they were going to sack him before the FA Cup final, we know they had talks with other managers and it took so long to decide. It's very obvious that Ineos were not sure. They were not sure. They didn't really 100% back Ten Hag, but obviously the alternatives haven't convinced them. So they've come back to Ten Hag. And I think in that case, if you want to stop player power or any problems next season. I think if Ten Hag goes into next season with 1 year left on his deal, Ineos aren't giving a new contract, it's going to cause that spin of, okay, he's going to be sacked. He's going to be sacked at the end of the season as soon as things go wrong. Whereas if they give him a new contract, it will show some kind of like longer term backing, which I think is what they sort of need to do, especially because they also want to change the terms. So they want to give Ten Hag less power when it comes to transfers and stuff and make him more of a head coach. And I think Ten Hag is now willing to accept that as well.
Yeah, there was reports coming out that he's had some of his responsibilities stripped away. I honestly think Ten Hag is a very good coach. I don't think, like, years ago when you had football managers, you had the likes of Wenger and Ferguson that were actually managing football clubs. Nowadays, you've got likes of Guardiola, that's one of the best coaches in the world, if not the best. And I think Ten Hag, in the system you had at Ajax, where you had academy players coming through galore, and some of the reports are coming out that Man United want to keep progressing with the youth. You know, likes of Kobe Mainu, likes of Alejandro Garnacho are good examples. Is there anyone else in the youth that is coming through that you think Ten Hag could like bring into the team and work well with?
Yeah, obviously, Maino and Garnacho were the main two when we won the Youth Cup. They were the standout ones. There was this other kid called Dan Gore, but he's had a lot of injury issues. They were the main three from that year. We've got a young left back. He's just turned 17, so I think he'll definitely need another season. Like, he's only just turned 17. And Harry Amas, he really does remind me of Luke Shaw. He's been playing brilliant for England at youth level. Ten Hag, has had a lot of specific talks with him, rates him highly. He'll probably be involved in pre-season. And then we've got a kid called Shea Lacey, who's sort of seen as like the next Phil Foden, the next kind of guy, but he's had a lot of injury issues. So I think Harry Amas and Shea Lacey would be the ones to watch if Shea Lacey can stay fit, and then potentially Ethan Wheatley and Amit Ibrahimov are young players coming through as well. And then also just young players at United like Ahmad and Wayland are still, I think, 20, 21 as well. He does like his sort of young players.
Yeah, you have got like a core of young players now. One thing that I do think you will strengthen throughout the transfer window is that kind of six and the defensive role. But I wanted to speak about the actual reaction to the Ten Hag news, because lots of people on social media and Man United fans that are just the average going fans are quite unhappy with Ten Hag staying. I know you won the FA Cup and you've won back-to-back trophies in years, which is more than Arteta can say. But overall, you finished eighth in the Premier League, seventh or eighth. You had more shots on goal than Derby County when they went down with a record low points. Can you understand the I guess you could say it's not, negativity, but can you understand that mindset towards Ten Hag, or do you think under the new ownership things will change?
Yeah, I can. Like, as someone that kind of wanted Ten Hag to stay, because I just sort of looked at the environment and the injuries and the other options out there, I personally think that Ten Hag staying was the best option. But I also am aware of the fact that last season was like dreadful. Like, we played awful football. I know we finished 8th and we won an FA Cup, but we played the kind of football that would, if we didn't have the players, would have finished 14th, 15th. We were schooled by teams. it wasn't good football. Tactically, Ten Hag did get a lot wrong. You know, most shots conceded. I think we actually might have conceded the most shots in the league, or like second most shots. I remember seeing a stat before the FA Cup final of the top 5 leagues, and I think the top 5 leagues, like all those teams, top 5 leagues, and Manchester United were ranked like 99th out of 100 or something like that for shots conceded, and Man City were ranked first because they had the best record. Like, it was bad, and I think like even Newcastle and Chelsea finished just above us, played better football, and they had injury issues as well. So I can completely understand like why people want to knock out. Like, the football was not good enough. The most losses in a season. I just personally myself, I'm like, look, if we're sacking the Tuchel, fair enough, but I'm not convinced on the other candidates. We have had injury issues. He's won 2 trophies in 2 years, so he's statistically the second most successful manager since he's joined after Pep. We hadn't won a trophy in 6 years before he came, but he did play very good football at Ajax. And there's this sort of people saying, oh, we should have got De Zerbi. De Zerbi plays good football. These people wanted Ten Hag, who want him out now because he plays good football. He comes to United, he can't. And a lot of it is down to the personnel, injuries, poor recruitment, not having the players in. And I think, you know, Arteta took 2 years, Klopp took 2 years. You know, you want De Zerbi in, but De Zerbi's not going to play good football with Casemiro and Eriksen, who can't really run anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Casemiro's he's like a baby deer with his knees. They've absolutely gone. One thing I keep saying is, if it's at your absolute worst, in the worst finish you've ever had in the Premier League, and you can still win an FA Cup, it can't surely, like, logistically, it can't get worse than this. You've had a lot of injuries. I think some of those injuries are probably down to, you know, just the training sessions that, according to reports, have been quite intense, but obviously some of it's bad luck. I don't think it can get much worse than this. You know, I do think you need a bit of an overhaul with the players. You know, there's Varane's obviously going to be potentially leaving. Lindelof's been linked to move away. You know, Casemiro. I do think you need a lot more quality in there. Whether, you know, Ratcliffe is going to go and drop the 100, 200 million pounds that you probably need. But I think it's more, you actually need a rebuild from the very top down to the bottom. There's reports going out that you only have a certain amount of medical staff. Like, Tottenham have got more medical staff on their books in terms of like rehabilitation for the players. Man United are the biggest club in the league, and for Tottenham to have more staff and better staff than Man United, I can say that with my absolute most. Man United should have the best of everything, but at the moment they don't. Is that on Ten Hag? Probably not. So I think it's more of a rebuild of the very, very top, to the coaches, to the medical staff. The actual culture at the football club, I think, needs to change. But I don't think you can get worse from here. I think you're only going to get better, personally.
100%. Sir Jim Ratcliffe said himself when he was asked about Ten Hag in like March, he said, one thing I'm going to say is, you know, the environment of the club has been an environment where no manager's been able to succeed since Sir Alex Ferguson. And that was something that, you know, was obviously probably something Ineos looked at. And I think the biggest thing for me is we've had this 2-year cycle of just sacking managers. And as you mentioned, like, if the staff aren't good enough all around the club, if there's sort of problems with like injuries, and yeah, maybe Ten Hag's training could have really helped the injury situation and among other things, but like, we do lack the staff. Ten Hag wanted to bring someone in to help with rehabilitation. The person that Ten Hag wanted to bring in to help with rehabilitation, the Glazers were like, no, we've got a lack of staff in the injury department. And Jason Wilcox came in, and Jason Wilcox did this like review of Manchester United and everything sort of going on at Man United, and he was kind of shocked about like the people that Manchester United lacked in regards to like the injury and rehabilitation stuff. So I think the fact that we're understaffed for injuries, but obviously understaffed for recruitment, obviously, you know, John Murta and people that didn't really know much about football shoes and stuff, I think it is important to change the context.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the transfer window opens in 2 days, and I do think you are, as your Man United, you're going to be linked to every player under the sun. What positions, just moving away from the Ten Hag news into the transfer news, what positions do you think you need to strengthen in terms of? I think you need an out-and-out DM, and I probably think you need to bring in another striker, because I think it'd be madness to expect Højlund to do everything on his own. Is there any other positions you think you need to strengthen?
Yeah, I think most important thing is obviously long-term Varane replacement, because he was, you know, he's such a good player. I think he's almost a little bit underrated, but he's obviously got a bit of an injury record. Like, Varane's presence will massively be missed. We saw that in the FA Cup final, how good he was. I think the number one is a Varane replacement is going to be a good partner for Martinez. And we'd arguably need 2 centre-backs just for depth, because obviously I think we played 16 different centre-back pairings in a 38-game season. It just tells you everything you need to know. I think we played like 34 different back lines in like 46 games in all competitions.
Yeah,
Like, it was
that's insane.
literally, the defensive injuries were a joke, but I think that right centre back, that long-term Varane replacement, a DM, because I think Casemiro is going to go to Saudi, and I think that's super important. And then, yeah, someone that's going to be able to back up Højlund, just give him a bit of support there. And then I would look at right wing. The problem is we've got Anthony, we've got Ahmad, we've got Sancho, we've got Greenwood still at the club that play right wing, but I'm assuming two of those will be offloaded in Greenwood and Sancho, and hopefully Anthony, but I don't think he'll go. So I think right wing, if Sales is there, I'd look at, and then left back for just injury issues again, and then maybe a second midfielder as well, just because I think Ericsson will go, Amrabat's gone, Casemiro will go, McTominay, if he goes, I think there'll definitely need to be a second midfield signing.
Yeah, I do think the out and out number 6 is going to be a very, very important role. But I don't know if you saw Transfer News Live. They're not the most credible source. They get things wrong, they get things right. They are, a bit of a Burnley in terms of the transfer news. They've come out last night, this is for me, this is a little bit frustrating because Man United and Tottenham are set to battle out to sign Crystal Palace winger EZE this summer. Now, he's been heavily linked to Tottenham for well over a year now. He's part of the same agency, the CAA-based limited, as a lot of our players. He's a London boy. He wants to apparently stay in London. But if Man United come calling, you've got to be an idiot to turn them down. You've been heavily linked with Michael EZE. There's now reports that he's agreed personal terms with Chelsea. Do you see a world in which Man United, he's got a release clause of £60 million with 8 million in add-ons? Do you see a world in which Man United could go out there and trigger that release clause?
Potentially. Look, he's a brilliant player, and I wouldn't say no to him at Manchester United. But I think we've got to be careful where we spend our funds. As I said, 6 is really important, and that brand replacement is really important. And I think Elise is a bit more what we need than Eze. Like, Eze is a great signing, but we spent 55 million on Mason Mount last season. Someone that can play on the left, and someone that's going to be that left-sided 8, and Bruno's going to be that right-sided 8, and then Mount will be 6 and backup. Not Mount. Maino will be 6 and backup 8. I think when you look at it, you've got Maino and Bruno and Mount and McTominay that all are 8s, and then you've got Casemiro that's a 6. I mean, Ericsson's also an 8/10, and you've got Casemiro that's a 6, and Amrabat's already gone because it was a loan. I think if United signed Eze, it's a good signing, but because he can play on the left, he can play as the left 8, but we signed Mount for that. Now, would I swap Eze for Mount? Absolutely. I think he's a better player than Mason Mount, but I think, in my opinion, I think he's not going to go to United, because I do think that they know that we need like a defensive-minded midfielder, as good as he is, and I do think we'll be more focused on Elise if he doesn't go to Chelsea.
Yeah, I believe Eze would be an unbelievable signing for Man United, but with Rafael Varane leaving, Lindelof being linked to a move away, kind of only really leaves you with Martinez in that kind of left-sided centre-back role. Maguire, I'm amazed he didn't go to the Euros. I know he didn't have a great season, but just having that experience in there. Is there any particular targets you'd like to bring in kind of in the centre-back roles themselves?
I think Lenny Euro would be incredible, but I think he's going to go to Real Madrid. I mean, he would be, I know he's young and then he'll be a little bit raw, but he, for me, will be the Rafael Varane of in like a couple of years. French young centre-back going to Real Madrid, like it feels like he's, could be our Saliba, Rafael Varane kind of type presence. I'm a big fan of Todibo as well. He's 24, so he's got experiences at Nice. He could fill in at right back if needed. He's a very good defender in terms of, I think he was linked to Tottenham a little bit in the January.
Yeah, he's got a release clause as well, apparently, now they're saying.
Ooh, yeah, he's a very good player. I think he's going to be available in the £30 million range as well. He kind of reminds me of the right-sided version of Mickey van der Ven, but a bit slower. Obviously, not as quick as Van der Ven. Good at defending the wide channels, good on the ball, large space defender. I like him a lot. The question is, he's tall, but he's not always the best aerially. So maybe for Martinez, someone a little bit better aerially would have been better suited. And then my third option, we'll just talk about Man United's 3 main options really here, is Branthwaite. Like, I like Branthwaite, but he's not worth paying more than 50 million for, in my opinion. We've got to be careful with, him being English, but he can play he's left-footed, but he can play on the right. And I think he has what Varane has in that sort of box defending aerial presence, which I think would work well with Lisandro Martinez. So I think those would be the 3 standout names that we've been linked to the most, that I personally I like all of them, to be honest.
With Jared Branthwaite, I think having two left-sided centre-backs, left-footed centre-backs in Martinez and Jared Branthwaite could be. I mean, I think he's good enough to quite easily play right-sided centre-back. Predominantly, he has played both of those for Everton. He's got 3 years left in his contract, and they apparently won £80 million. I think that's a little bit, as great as he is. I mean, I'd love him at Spurs. I think he'd rival Romero very, very well. But I think that's a little bit too much. Saliba, on the other hand, apparently Nice are in a situation where they've got to sell players. If you could get Tadibo, like you said, for £30 million, I don't know if the release clause rumours are true. I think he'd be unbelievable. We've been linked to him for the last 2 summers. We actually chose Van der Ven over him. And I was a little bit gutted because I think as an actual defender, Tadibo's probably a better defender. But the way we play, that recovery pace from Van der Ven is like gold. It's gold dust for us. What's your thoughts on Anthony Martial? I don't know if you've read the report from the Standard. He's come out and said finances are not the priority. His agent has insisted the striker is not financially greedy. The 28-year-old is on the hunt for a new club and is open to joining Spanish or Italian clubs. Is that the right decision for Man United to sell him, do you think? Or to not even sell him? He's leaving on a free, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it is because of the wages he's on, and I think his injury issues. That I generally believe that Martial is a good player. He's just very injury prone. Like this season, he had an insane season under Van Gaal, and he had 2 really good seasons under Ollie, and then he just never really recovered in Ollie's final season. Went to loan to Sevilla, and then last season was injured for the full season. This season has basically been injured. He sort of was really good, deserved that new contract. I think he got 17 non-penalty goals in the Premier League, which was the most in that Ollie season of I think anyone at that time, like most non-penalty goals. And like I do like Martial. I think he brings out the best in Rashford. I think the Martial, Rashford, Greenwood front three in lockdown was unbelievable. And, you know, he links up well and he can drop deep. And I think he's a really good all-round player, Martial. But he's offered us nothing in 2 years. He has to go. And I think he's 28 years of age. He's not like crazy old. I think it's not about, you know, going to Saudi and taking the money. It's, you know, you can get your career back on track. You've still got time. It's just, if you're just injury prone. And I think, yeah, probably right decision.
Yeah, I think personally it's the right time for him to move on, both for him and, you know, for both parties. I think it's the best kind of move. Just speaking regards just other transfers quickly. Benjamin Sesko has decided to stay at RB Leipzig. I actually think this is probably the right decision to do. Erling Haaland was in a similar situation where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wanted him at Man United, and he decided to stay an extra year at Dortmund, and he smashed the league to smithereens. He got another 40-odd goal contributions. Do you think, looking at the striker market, Benjamin Sesko's made the right decision? Is it better for him to get another year under his belt?
I think when you're so young, you're 20 years of age, I think definitely he's playing well at Leipzig. He can continue that form. He's now going to start more because he didn't start for Leipzig for like the first half of the season. Then he sort of got his place at Leipzig. And I think when you're that young, you know that there's going to be clubs calling for you next year. I'm sure if he does what he did this year, Arsenal and Chelsea and everyone will be backing him for him next year. Like the options were Arsenal and Chelsea really, and Man United were in there, but I don't think we're ever going to really push for him. And I think, to be fair, his only real option there was Arsenal, but he had Havertz, Jesus, a lot of people to compete with. That I think, you know what, he's made the safe decision to give himself another year.
Yeah, I think it's a correct decision. Do you think, in terms of the Man United strikers, I think you will sign someone else to help out with the likes of Rasmus Højlund? Is there anyone that you? The striker market's a little bit. I mean, Tony's been linked with Man United. You've got Alexander Isak, Newcastle holding out for 130, 140 million pounds. I don't personally think they're going to sell both Bruno Guimaraes and Isak. Then you've got the likes of En-Nesyri at Sevilla, who's got 1 year left on his deal. He's got 16 goals La Liga last year. Is there anyone Man United, in terms of that role, could go for?
Yeah, I think the thing with United is I think Højlund has it to be a top striker. He's 20 or 20, I think he's just turned 21 now, years of age. He got, I think, 16 goals in all competitions last season, and I think he had the 3rd highest conversion rate of any striker in the league. If you look at his like XG compared to all the strikers that had more goals than him last season, it's significantly less. He created a lot of goals for himself. When you think that he got 16 goals in his first ever season of professional football at 20 years of age, when he had a lot of pressure on him from the media, and he had literally no service. He was in that sort of role with no service. I think Højlund, is a good striker, and I think he can develop into a great striker if we actually give him the service, because we know he can score. So I feel like we're in a position where, like, well, Sesko would have been brilliant, but do we need two great 20-year-old strikers? Do you know what I mean? Like, do we want to spend that much money on someone when we know Højlund's going to be that main guy? I think we're in a position where we don't really want to spend more than 40 million on a striker. Ideally, in my opinion, I don't think we should spend more than 30 million on a striker. I'd push for Xerxes' 34 million release clause. We're looking at Xerxes, but I think he's going to go AC Milan because he's not guaranteed game time at United because of Højlund. But our problem is we don't get the striker service. So I want to get a striker that's more like a Roberto Firmino type player, a Christopher Nkunku type player that can be like a centre forward, drop deep, facilitate the wingers, and actually you see the wingers get more goals, and the striker's really involved in that, and get the best out of Rashford and maybe Elise if we brought him in, or Garnacho, whoever's on the right. So for me, Cunha and Xerxes would be who I go for. Cunha's going to be a bit out of budget, you know, even like a João Felix kind of player that would facilitate your wingers. But I think we won't get Xerxes. Cunha we like, but he's out of budget. Ivan Toney, I think, might be a little bit out of budget, and he's not had the best season. There's one player that we've been linked to, and I've completely forgot his name, but we're linked to him today by Build. He's a 21-year-old striker that got 16 goals in the Bundesliga that apparently is quite good at dropping deep with a 25 million release clause or something. He plays for Hoffenheim, but his name is just completely like left my head. That maybe
I know who you mean.
yeah.
Oh, it's going to bug me now. I'm surprised you're not going in for. I'm probably going to butcher his name. Is it Dubovka, the Ukraine striker at Girona? He just won the Golden Boot in La Liga. I don't necessarily know if he would join Man United because Girona are under the City Group. They're 51% owned by the City Group, and I don't think they'd want to help out Man City's arch rivals. But I think he got. I'm not entirely sure how many goals he got in the Premier League in La Liga last year, but I know he did win the Golden Boot. He got 24 goals and 8 assists to 32 GA in 36 games, and of course, Girona had a very good season. I'm surprised he's apparently available for 40 million euros. Like I'm surprised no one's really going in for him. I guess they can offer him Champions League. Another one is Alexander Solarov at Villarreal. He's 28. He had a very good season as well. He got 29 GA in 34 games. Like those two strikers, they're not really known to, unless you watch the Liga religiously. You're not the average person won't know who they are, but they've both scored a combined 45 goals in last season, playing for Villarreal, who finished around mid-table, and Girona. So yeah, I'm surprised Man United aren't being linked with either of those, to be honest.
Yeah, I do think an experienced striker that has goals in them that doesn't mind being back up to Højlund is probably what we need, to be honest.
Yeah, Artem Dibov. I can't pronounce it. My Ukrainian is not the best. But look, we are going to wrap up. What sort of content have you got coming out on both the channels over the next couple of days?
I'm going to keep an eye on the news and stuff. I know Chelsea are following the player at Villa, so that looks like it might be moving. So might do a video on that. Arsenal
is that Duran?
Yeah, Duran. Arsenal being very quiet with their transfer news. I feel like because as soon as Chelsea find out who Arsenal want, I feel like Chelsea are going to go for them. So I feel like that's why Arsenal are actually just being really quiet. So I'll keep an eye on what they're doing. Obviously, main channel, just Man United stuff. And then we'll see what's going on. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. Make sure you get down Alice's channels. The Man United one will be pinned in the title because obviously this is about Man United. The second one will be in the description. Thank you all for watching. We will see you all soon. We are out of here.